After dark, fellas, it's officially week 1. That's the first time we can say that in this beautiful college football season. My name is Greg Waddell. I'm here with Adam Breneman. I'm here with Darien Rencher. We're going to talk a little bit about week 0, just a tiny little bit. We're going to go around the horn, give a toast to some of the best performers from week 0, but then we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about this great slate that we have this upcoming week, including a bunch of games Thursday night that should not be overlooked. There's games Friday, there's games Saturday, Sunday. It's really college football season now. You've got to love it. Boys, how are you, Adam? This is my first time being on air with you. It's great to be here with you, my friend. How you doing tonight?
I'm great, man. I'm fired up. Football's here finally. We've been waiting a while, man, and I'm loving the new trend of week 0 in college football, man. You got to love a little early action.
Yeah, who's going to complain about watching Scott Frost fumble and mess things up? You know, it is what it is. Darien, you look good, man. Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be back on the show, joining my people, Field of 12 family. But I'm good. Like you said, it's just I'm glad to see somebody back out on the green, on the grass, some pads popping. It's just good for the world, good for America. You know, finally got some football back.
Everything feels right in the world again. It's beautiful. All right, let's do the turn the page backwards real quick. Let's talk about the winners of week 0. Let's just go around the horn quickly, give a toast. This could be to a player. This could be to a coach. This could be to a team, whoever your winner from week 0 of college football was. Adam, let's throw to you first. Who you got for your winner of the week?
Well, I'm excited for this because I feel like every narrative in the national media has been about Scott Frost, how he blew the game, how Nebraska's terrible, he's getting fired, but no one's talking about Pat Fitzgerald and how he just shows up week after week, primetime game after primetime game, and gets the job done. Lunch pail mentality. It's almost expected at this point, but I mean, no one thought Northwestern was going to actually win that game, and he continuously gets it done, and it's almost so expected that it's overlooked at this point. So we can't overlook Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern. So let's take a sip to Pat Fitzgerald.
Cheers.
Darren, where's the drink, man?
I'm not gonna lie. I came upstairs to my little studio, and my drinks are downstairs. So we got an imaginary drink. Hey guys, imagine whatever you want is in this drink. Your favorite juice, drink. Or we can add some grown people's drinks to it. But it's here. It's here in spirit.
That's just the Clemson way of outperforming us, really. Adam and I are Big Ten guys. You know, we're not necessarily used to national championships. Apparently, you're not allowed to have a beverage here and there when you're really focused on greatness. I get it. Let's have you go next, Darien. You already gave your toast, I believe, right, Saturday night when you were on the show. So you could even double down and go back to that if you want, or you could give us someone fresh. Who you got for your toast of the week?
Yeah, I'm original, man. I wouldn't double down. Come on. I'm gonna give a moral victory, a moral toast to FAMU, Willie Simmons and the crew down there for going to North Carolina and put up a fight. It was a close game up until the first half. They were down. I think they had 5 seconds left. They were down by a score, 28-14. Then it was like 35-28 going to the third quarter at the end of the third quarter. So just to go in there, especially the HBCU team, and put up a fight, and you feel like you have the confidence in your guys if they can go back and win in your own conference, I salute to it. And at the same time, if you guys know the story, they had like 25 guys ineligible. It was nuts. So for them to rally back last minute and go to Chapel Hill and put up a decent fight, my imaginary toast goes to them.
Cheers. That's a heck of an imaginary toast.
Come on.
I love it.
All right, I'm going to get in my feelings a little bit here, gentlemen. It's hard for me to not be selfish, but again, Darien knows this from our first show together. I am the resident gambler on the Field of 12 After Dark Network. And look, I gave out a parlay on our Best Bets show with Doster last week that our first ever retirement parlay, $100 to win like $60,000. We're going to do that every week. We're going to try to win some money. But here's the thing, gentlemen. I had a parlay this weekend, 10 legs. 9 of them hit. The last thing I needed to win $50,000 was Hawaii to cover 10.5 points, just to cover, not even to win the game, just cover like normal. They lost 63-10, absolutely smoked. And, behind the curtain, I was at a friend's wedding rehearsal that night. I couldn't even hedge. They were down 40 points so fast. There was nothing I could do. That's a lesson to all the people at home to hedge whenever possible, gamble responsibly at BetRivers. But it's also my toast of the week to Vanderbilt football, because I came on here and I crapped all over Vanderbilt last year. I said that they're not a concern at all. They're not going to go across the ocean to the islands. Yeah. And I don't care how bad Hawaii is. I don't take them seriously. No, I should not have just floated by Vanderbilt. A 53-point win in a football game. I don't care who you're playing. That's tough to do. So 100%. Vanderbilt, you stole money from me, but I toast to you. Good job, Commodores.
They rushed for 400 yards. I mean, it don't matter who you play. If you rush for 400 yards, look, hats off to you. Your scheme worked. You did something right. Salute.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, too. I don't know how good Vanderbilt's going to be the rest of the year, but Mike Wright's a dynamic player who's exciting to watch. So that was your first mistake, man. You shouldn't have bet against Mike Wright. Come on.
Lesson learned, clearly. We'll see if I overcompensate, start putting a little too much trust in the Commodores here the next couple of weeks.
You're gonna be the biggest Vanderbilt bettor. Yeah.
Every single week, I'm on them. All right, let's before we get into games this week, which we're gonna spend much of the second half of the show talking about, I want to kind of just pose a broader question to you guys going into this week. So there's a lot of high-profile first-year head coaches that are in this sport this season. Obviously, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, he's the first that comes to mind for me, but you've got Dan Lanning, you've got Brent Venables. Give me a first-year head coach that in your mind is primed to exceed expectations. Whatever you think the national consensus is on this guy, give me someone that you would put your chips behind in a way where he will outperform what that national consensus is. Darien, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
All right, out of the three guys you name, I don't know if the only exceeding would be to win it all. Like, I feel like Dan Lanning at Oregon. I mean, Oregon wants to be a national contender. They obviously want to win their conference, but I don't feel that's exceeding expectations. Like, they expect to win the Pac-12. Obviously, Utah won it last year, but Oregon expects to do that. So Dan Lanning is getting hired to take Oregon back to LaMichael James. You know, that era of Oregon football where it was really exciting. They were dominating. They were playing for BCS championships, all that good stuff. Then you go to kind of Midwest to Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame. Like, Notre Dame's expecting they want to go all the way. They've been in the playoffs a bunch of times the last 4 or 5 years. They want to win it all. And you go from Marcus Freeman, Dan Lanning, go to Coach V, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's won as many games as anybody like the last 10 years. Like, they, you know what I'm saying? None of those three coaches, to me, their expectation is like, hey, let's go win a conference championship and be in the playoffs. And if it ain't that, then it's a bust year. So my coach to exceed expectations would be, all right, I try not to be biased on the show, even though I got this Clemson thing behind me. I try not to be biased. But you said first-year head coaches. And so I'm going to go to Charlottesville, to UVA, to Coach Tony Elliott. And I think UVA's expectations are – expectations aren't low, but their expectations are low. I think they can win the Coastal. Say it here now. They were in the AC championship in 2019. We played them for the AC title in 2019, and I think they have. You look at Brennan Armstrong. You look at their receivers. They got to figure out the defensive side, but that Coastal side, to me, there's never been like a proven person on that side. And Pitt is kind of, I ain't gonna say rebuilding, but Pitt's kind of figuring it out. I really think it wouldn't be the craziest thing for UVA to win the Coastal and be in the AC championship against whoever. It'll be like, it'll be one of those three-way ties, but somehow if they could just be in a mix, to me, that would be exceeding expectations. So my vote goes to Tony Elliott.
Adam, Darien mentioned Pitt there in passing. And, I mean, Penn State guy, Pitt, he's talked a lot of smack, Pat Narduzzi has, about the Big Ten.
A lot.
About if you go over to that conference, maybe you'd run away with that. I got to pick your brain on that. That man's insane, right? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I like Pat Narduzzi. He's done a really good job at Pitt, but that was just a crazy statement. I mean, I watched that interview he did where he said that. And he said a lot of crazy things during that interview. I feel like he didn't even know he was being recorded because he was talking about how he run the table in the Big Ten. I'm like, he can't be serious. But I like Pitt, man. I mean, Keaton Slovis and, obviously losing Kenny Pickett's tough. Losing Mark Whipple, their offensive coordinator, is tough. But Pitt's got a really good defense, and I think they're going to be better than people think. Obviously, anytime you lose, the top quarterback in the country, people are going to lower expectations. But Keaton Slow has played a lot of football, man. That guy's slung the rock around the Pac-12 for a long time. So I'm excited to see what he does.
I don't know if Narduzzi ever knows that he's being recorded. And right now he's breaking his opponent's starting quarterback news this week. I mean, he went to the press conference and said, this is who West Virginia's starting. It's JT Daniels. So somebody's got to tell him, like, let's get him in some media relations courses, something. Right. I'm looking out for my guy Narduzzi, former Michigan State guy. I want what's best for him, but he's losing.
It's funny in Pennsylvania, with a lot of the rivalries, the coaches kind of like, they may be buddies off the field. They don't like each other on the field. Pitt and Penn State literally hate each other. I mean, Narduzzi and Franklin despise each other. It's just like the funniest thing. And then Narduzzi goes on. I just know how much that probably bothered the whole Penn State staff and all of them when they talked about running the table in the Big Ten. And Franklin and Penn State always talks about dominating the state in Pennsylvania. So, but it's just a funny scenario.
Yeah, it's insanity to me. All right, I want to go back to the concept of a new head coach here. And Adam, you have gone through coaching a little bit, right? You've gone from a player into a coaching role. So I want to ask you, obviously there's no comparison to taking over a program for the first time, but what do you think these guys who are these first year head coaches, especially at a big school, because you have been around the highest prestige football programs in the country, like what type of pressure are they stepping into? And what's it like to kind of go from maybe just a guy, or in your case, you were kind of going from a player, one of, almost 100 guys on a team, into all of a sudden now there's a little more spotlight on me. And can you relate to that a little bit and what these guys are going through?
Yeah, I think it's intense. And the pressure, especially at these big time schools, is intense, and it starts right away. I mean, you got to show results year one. We've seen it all over the country in the SEC. Brian Harsin and Auburn. I mean, you see it all the time. If you don't compete on day one, no one cares anymore, and there aren't even excuses anymore. I mean, you have the transfer portal, and you can go in and rebuild your roster in 1 year. I mean, there's teams that have 40 some new players on their roster coming into 2022. So the pressure is there, and then it's up to the head coach to decide, how am I going to build this program, and that also depends on alignment from the university and what the AD wants and things like that. But like a guy like Lincoln Riley goes to USC and decides that we're going to totally revamp our roster, and we're going to go attack the transfer portal and bring in tons of new guys. Or there's other examples of attacking the high school recruiting. And are you going to develop guys the right way and try to play the long game and see if you can bring in a good high school class and get a couple years under your belt? But it seems like in college football, continuously the clock gets shorter and shorter for when the coaches have to turn their programs around, or when they have to improve it, because a lot of these new head coaches are taking over programs that aren't bad. I mean, you look at Dan Lanning at Oregon, talk about a first-year head coach who's early 30s, who's taking over a program that Mario Cristobal has built to be arguably the best in the Pac-12 and one of the best in the country. And talk about pressure. I mean, he better perform in year one now at Oregon. And he's one of my favorite young coaches to watch this year.
Yeah, and he's stepping into another guy, Mario Cristobal, who's headed to Miami. That I think, even beyond the three that I named already, there's a lot of guys who may not even be the first timers now, but these guys who have graduated from wherever their first stop was or second stop into now they're taking that jump to the next prestigious program. Darien, I kind of cut you off there. You want to jump in with something?
Yeah, I would just say you kind of, each context, like he was alluding to, is just entirely different. I think some coaches, they're being brought in to totally revamp a culture. Like Mario Cristobal is going to Miami to bring the U back, which is something like their program has wanted for a while. They've hired a bunch of coaches trying to get back to the glory days. They want to run the tables in ACC. They want to be that premier team in Florida. You look at like Coach Venables going to Oklahoma. He's not really revamping anything as much as like, hey, how can we consistently take it to that next level that we really want to be at? And so I think expectations are different. I think just like you said, for now, a lot of these schools are bringing these big time coaches in. You have to get the sexy offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator guys that come in, and they're really being asked to, like, hey, from day one, be competitive, you gotta show some type of improvement. We brought you in for defense. Defense got to be better. If we brought you in for offense, we got to score some points. And so I think there is a lot of like pressure, but it just comes with the territory. And then some coaches are taking challenges. Like some coaches may have gotten bored where they are, where they just played we're coaching in a smaller school. They take a bigger job somewhere. And so it is interesting. You allude to the Manning coach at Oregon is because he's so young. I feel like once you take that leap into being a head coach, like it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, do you just go back to being a coordinator? I don't know. It's just like I feel like once you step out there, that's why some guys wait a while. Yeah. They don't take jobs. Like you look at Coach Elliott and Coach Venables, they waited 10 years, a decade before they really, really tested the waters. And so it'll be interesting. I wish them the best, but it is kind of one of those things. Once you step out there, you out there.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I love your pick for for first time head coach. But like I mentioned him, but Dan Lanning has an opportunity at Oregon this year to do some special things in his first year. I mean, he's got to kick off the season against Georgia, but other than that, I mean, they have 3 tough games: BYU, UCLA, and Utah, and they're all at home, and they don't play USC. And I love Bo Nix. I think he's going to have a big year. He's got a great staff. Kenny Dillingham's his offensive coordinator, who's another young guy. I mean, that staff's like averages. I think they're the average like 30 years old across the whole staff. But I think they got a chance to be really, really good. The receivers, Troy Franklin, Dante Thornton, Chris Hudson. Yeah. I mean, they got a chance to be good. And the interesting thing is if they lose to Georgia and run the table in the Pac-12, could they still make the playoff? If you lose to a 1 or 2 Georgia team, it's an interesting thing to think about.
Potentially,
it's interesting, and I think out of all the situations, he's got one of the most favorable ones. And I love Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. I put them in my playoff prediction last week. And
did you really?
I did. I'll tell you. You sound just like Whitfield right now, man. He about spit his drink out when I said that. But no, I love Marcus Freeman, and I think he's got a chance to not just maintain what they built, but improve it. And I'm all in on the Marcus Freeman train.
All right, last thing before we keep the train moving. They play the first game, right? In order for them to make the playoffs, they got to win out. I don't see them.
I disagree. I think they can lose one and still make it.
I don't know. Not as independent. I don't think so. If ACC wins out, SEC wins out, Big Ten wins out, Notre Dame only gets in if they're undefeated. I don't think they get in one loss. I think they have to. I think Ohio State ironically would get in if they lost to Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame gets hit. They lose Ohio State. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the way
it just depends how it plays out. Yeah.
And also, do you think they have enough firepower? That's kind of my thing about Notre Dame. I thought they're going to play hard, but then they lost Avery Davis. And then quarterback situation, you lose Kyron Williams. Like, you got a great tight end, but then it's like.
I like Tyler Buckner too. I think he's going to be really good. He was really good in high school. I know he's young. I know he hasn't played a ton, but you mentioned the tight end. I'm the biggest tight end homer of all time. So I love.
He's
Michael
a baller.
Mayer. He's a baller. They brought in Brandon Joseph, the safety. He was one of the best in the Big Ten. And then have you seen the Chris Tyree kid run at all? The receiver.
He's fast. He played against us like 2 years ago. No, he's fast. Bro's fast.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. Maybe it's just like I also love that the video of when Marcus Freeman was named the head coach and those players went nuts. Like I want to root for Notre Dame. I want to root for Marcus Freeman, but I think they're talented, man. I think they got a chance to be really, really good.
I want to ask about that. So you mentioned the video of Freeman, right? And you guys, again, both highly esteemed players who have played for great coaches in your career, but like, how much of this is just like media rah-rah hype stuff where people want to root for Notre Dame because of these guys rallying around a guy who stepped up and didn't leave them in the face of their head coach leaving? Or is that something that could actually really translate to on the field this season? Like, is motivation to prove Brian Kelly wrong something that will impact Notre Dame football this year?
Honestly, I probably just knowing that their tradition and just like prestige. I feel like they aren't really trying to prove Brian Kelly wrong as much as like they're just trying to play for a coach they love. Because I mean they believed in Brian Kelly fully, and like now he's gone. He went and took a bag. Hey, teach his own. Look, go do your thing. But I think Marcus Freeman stand when he had the option to leave, to me that like garnered immediate respect from the players, from the staff, and that's a big thing. Even the staff, to see him not leave, I think from the staff standpoint, like you create a lot of like cohesion there, and then the players that even though they lost their bowl game, but it was still like kind of they rallied together for the last game to go play for Coach Freeman, and then going into the offseason. I feel like he's definitely he's a culture guy. You can just tell. He can just tell. He just bleeds it. And so I know those guys are ready to play, ready to believe in what he's doing. So I think I don't think necessarily motivation as much as it's like DNA. I feel like he's instilling a really championship DNA into their culture and their program. And I feel like even through a video, like he's saying on Twitter or Instagram, it's really evident that those guys want to play for him.
Yeah, it's a great point. And knowing how the culture was under Brian Kelly, and he obviously did a great job. They won a ton of games, man. Like he's really good at what he does. But I wouldn't exactly call Brian Kelly like a player's coach. I don't think the players loved him. Again, he won games. He built a program up. He recruited his butt off. But I think the difference between Freeman and Kelly is so drastic, and the players were so ready for a change. Just from what I've observed and people I've talked to, I think that football is a people business, man. When people want to play for their head coach, it brings out a little different kind of energy. And that first game, Marcus Freeman's alma mater, I mean, that's going to be an intense game against Ohio State. And if Notre Dame can pull it off, I mean, that's going to be. I'm going to be texting Darien. I'm going to be texting Darien and telling him I told you so.
It's going to be like a 14-12 game if they win it, because there's no way they're going to be able to score enough points. But we'll see.
Yeah. You're telling me that college Adam Breneman didn't want to dance on a TikTok with Brian Kelly? Really? I mean, I know you saw the video of the LSU recruits. Like, come on, that's not your thing, Adam?
I would have done it, man. I've probably gotten some followers out of it or something. But no, the other interesting thing about the Notre Dame Ohio State game is what's going to be funny is if it is tight, everyone's going to be talking about how Ohio State's terrible and they're not. They may not even win the Big Ten, but no one will be giving any credit to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's not good either. So it's a lose-lose if it's tight, man.
Hey, that's just how, us in Big Ten country, we got to operate that way.
Doubt.
That's how it goes. We got to criticize the few chances we get to criticize the Buckeyes. We have to do it. All right, let's turn the page here. Let's go look forward at games that are actually going to happen this week. The first of which, Adam's own Nittany Lions have a big Big Ten matchup against Purdue. Early season game with implications, you could say. We just did poke a lot of fun at Nebraska, who BetRivers had as the 5th best favorite to win the Big Ten Conference heading into the season. That looks crazy in hindsight, but now you've got this Purdue team that a lot of people think could surprise, and a Penn State team that, at least to me, feels a little bit forgotten about in the top tier of potential contenders in this conference, particularly in their division, where Michigan has just gotten over the hump against Ohio State, and a lot of people are laser focused on that 2-team matchup. So, Adam, let's go to you first. What is this game about from a Penn State perspective going into this season? Do they need to assert themselves in this game, or is this just survive and advance in week 1?
Yeah, I think they do, and they need to assert themselves. I mean, Penn State, for as much success as James Franklin has had at Penn State and the Big Ten championship, and for as many times as he's been a top team in the country there, they've had a rough the last 2 seasons. I mean, the COVID year was bad. Last year, they were playing at Iowa, number 4 in the country, and Sean Clifford gets hurt at halftime, and it goes downhill from there, and they end up losing, I think, 5 in a row. It was a bad second half of the season. So there's a lot on the line. Coach Franklin just signed a 10-year extension worth about $90 million this offseason. The school's invested in him. So this is an absolute must-win game for Penn State. I mean, this is the game Penn State has to win. You can't open the season and lose to Purdue, because then week 3 Penn State plays Auburn, and if you lose to Purdue, you go into week 3 playing Auburn. You do not want to see what happens if they're 1-2 going into week 4. Happy Valley will not be very happy anymore. But from a Penn State standpoint, I love Sean Clifford. I think he's a guy who's played so much football. He's had a lot of success, won a lot of games, but still gets a lot of flack nationally. But he's a really solid game manager, and I think he's going to have a good season. It's also his first year. Sean Clifford's never had an offensive coordinator for 2 years in a row at Penn State. So other than this year. So first year in his 6th year he's having an OC for back-to-back years, Mike Yursich in year 2 of his system. So I'm excited to see what they do, how they grow together. You know, they had a transfer, Mitchell Tinsley, come in from Western Kentucky. Manny Diaz, the former Miami head coach, is the defense coordinator. So I think Penn State's got a chance to be really, really good. They got to figure out their middle linebacker situation, but they're explosive. They have 2 freshman running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, who are going to be really, really good. So it's a must-win game for them. I think Penn State will win. I think they'll win handily. But then you talk about Purdue, who has a lot of momentum right now. I mean, Aiden O'Connell had a great season and is kind of on the national stage and has some NFL hype already. And there's a lot of talented players. Jeff Brom's done a great job at Purdue. So it's going to be an intense game, but it's a must win for Penn State.
Yeah, I think you look at my take on that. I know he's a Nittany Lion guy himself. It's like you were saying, just like you look at the last 8 games of Penn State, they went 2-6, which is like, I mean, that's just as much as James Franklin's name has been in like the national spotlight for being a great head coach. It's like just consistency wise, that's a super down year to me to go 2-6 at Penn State when you have so much like just really so much pride in the program. And then flip side is Purdue went 6-2 the last 8 games. And so it's kind of 2 different messages to me. If I was coaching those teams, like obviously James Franklin's like, hey, he feels like this is where we got to get back on track. We had to come out, win the opener, make a stamp in the conference. And then the opposite side is like Purdue 9-4 last year. If they're like legit and it wasn't just a fluke year, like go out and beat Penn State first game. Let's get it cracking again. Let's keep it rolling. And so to me, it's a statement game for both programs. I feel like if Purdue wants to continue the success, they win this game. If Penn State needs to they want to get back on, they have to go win this game. So that'll be a good matchup for sure.
Aiden O'Connell is the wild card to me. I mean, he's a guy that we've seen when he's hot is dynamic enough to lead that team to wins they might not necessarily deserve or might not necessarily, people wouldn't expect them to even be in a game. And all of a sudden they are because he's rolling out, he's escaping the pocket, he's throwing on the run, and all of a sudden he's got 4 touchdowns and they're in a shootout of a game. So I'm going back to our Field of 12 Big Ten preview. And this was preseason, pre-week 0. But we had the experts here. We had Jake Butt. We had Joshua Perry on here. And for these 2 teams, it's very interesting to me. Both these guys agreed they had Penn State 6th preseason. But they disagreed on Purdue. Josh Perry had Purdue as high as 3rd heading into the season in the Big Ten. Jake Butt had Purdue at 7th, so just below Penn State. Adam, from the Penn State side of that, do you think that's a little too low on the Nittany Lions?
I think it's definitely too low. I was going to ask you, can you tell me who again had Penn State at number 6? Was that Jake Butt? If it was Jake Butt, we're throwing that out the window, man.
This was Jake Butt and Joshua Perry as well, but Jake Butt was involved.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten's on verge of being, one of the best, probably the best. The Big Ten East is probably the best division in football, along with the SEC West, and so I think you got Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State. I would probably put Penn State at 4th in the Big Ten this season. I think they're gonna be pretty good. Again, we talk about last season. Penn State was number 4 in the country, going on the road to play Iowa undefeated, and Sean Clifford gets hurt. They lose PJ Mustipher, their defense tackle, and they spiral out of control. Now you have to be able to recover from that, and you can't go lose 6 in a row after your quarterback gets hurt. But Penn State's got a lot of talent. They return almost everyone. They return Sean Clifford. I think they're going to be better than people think. They're certainly going to be better than 6 in the Big Ten.
I think 6 sounds okay. I don't know. I feel like Wisconsin. People I like Wisconsin. They're gonna run the ball. They got a running back stable, 3 really good running backs, and I feel like that's one of those teams. If you just can't stop the run, it's gonna be a long day for you. Now, if you can hold them on the run, they're not gonna beat you too much passing the ball. But I feel like I like Wisconsin. So to me, the 4 teams he named: Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan State, and you had who's the 4 team you had up there? Is that Michigan State? I'm missing somebody.
So the one that both Josh and Jake had that eschewed this
Iowa.
A little bit.
Iowa.
It wasn't Iowa for these 2 though. They had Minnesota. Both these guys had Minnesota ahead of Penn State in their preseason.
Come on,
Rode a boat, huh?
come on, the PJ Fleck era.
Throw the boat. Yeah, I don't know. I like Wisconsin, and I don't know. I ain't sold on Minnesota. I don't know. That don't. I feel like six sounds right to me. I feel like right in the middle of the pack.
We're gonna have to revisit this.
Yeah, they can definitely climb. They have the potential to climb. But I guess going off right now, I like them at 6.
Okay. We're going to have to revisit this because especially even not just Penn State, but like Purdue. If you were to tell me, okay, one expert's got them 3rd in this conference, one expert's got them 7th in this conference, my gut would tell me I lean, okay, 7th, like they're middle of the pack type team. They got to show me something before I would rank them ahead of a Penn State, ahead of a Wisconsin, ahead of an Iowa, these institutional programs that are winning 9-10 games year in and year out. However, if they get a W in week 1 against Penn State and they hold their own in that game, all of a sudden I can see that stock going up, and maybe they are the 3rd best team in this conference. We'll have to wait and see. All right, so let's go over to ACC country now. Another game that I'm very excited about in week 1. We've got North Carolina against Appalachian State. This is a road game, a true road game. You're going into the mountains to take on a program that has been absolutely dominant at home, and that's not an overstatement. Appalachian State has been one of the best football teams in the entire country when they play on their home field. North Carolina off pretty much a walkover game, you could say, right? That game was over, I think, before they laced the shoes up last week. They've got the new quarterback. He was impressive in his debut, that's for sure. But we maybe see this team on upset alert? Darien, this is your country. Do you think they got to worry about this game?
Is it the craziest thing to even call it an upset? That's a real question. Like a real question. I mean, North Carolina was an average team last year. App State went to a bowl game. You got Chase Bryce, who threw for a lot of yards last year, who's a great player. He's got NFL talent. And they're a proud program. Appalachian State has never been a program that just thinks that they can't beat people. They've upset people in the past. They have that like notoriety as a program to go into places or at home and upset people. I wouldn't even call it upset. I think they can get beat. I ain't saying they will get beat, but I think Appalachian State is talented enough to beat them at home. And just going off last week with UNC, I think Drake May was very impressive to come in as his first start. But at the same time, they also gave up points early, and it was a competitive game to FAMU. So to think Appalachian State can't put up points and can't scheme up something to carve them up I think that's very reasonable. And so I wouldn't even call it upset. I think it'll be a very competitive game. I would not be surprised if Appalachian State won. Obviously, UNC would be favorited, but I think it's going to be a tough game in Boone. And I know Boone's going to be rocking.
To your point, BetRivers has this game as a pick'em right now.
It's pick'em.
So maybe this is not an upset. And you did mention this quickly, Darien, but I just want to point this out because there was some discussion over the weekend on Drake May. And he was fantastic. He was fantastic in all facets as a quarterback, throwing short, throwing medium, throwing deep. His numbers back that up from his first week as a college quarterback. So jury may still be out. We got to see, but definitely passed the test with flying colors in week 1. All right, Adam, I'm gonna force your hand here. If you had to go to BetRivers and sprinkle one of those two sides, who wins this football game?
Yeah, I think North Carolina wins. I think that the pick'em on all those sports books. I think the line opened like -3 for UNC and now has moved. All the money's been going on App State has moved to a pick'em. So I think App State, the public kind of likes to bet on App State. You know, it's a cool story. App State's program has done well. It's been hot lately. But I think UNC's too talented and May's obviously impressive. He impressed in his debut. Josh Downs is going to have a huge game for him, the receiver,
right.
Be that kind of security blanket for him, that safety blanket. I love their young tight end. His name's Bryson Nesbitt. We recruited him when I was at Arizona State. He's a really talented guy. He kind of reminds me of Evan Ingram a little bit, and I think they'll use him in a lot of different ways. People forget App State lost 3 of their top receivers last year, and then North Carolina has two elite corners, Storm Duck and Tony Grimes, if he plays in the game. So I like UNC. I think they'll win the game handedly. Maybe not a blowout, but I think they'll win in a 2-score game.
First team all name captain Storm Duck, by the way.
I'm
glad we got a mention for him. So, all right, let's move to a couple other games that are on my radar heading into this week, particularly of interest due to some new faces in new programs making some debuts. The first, USC's first game this season, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison. They're hosting Rice. This is sort of after all the buildup, after all offseason of Caleb Williams' name being thrown around, the CJ Strouds, the Bryce Youngs of the world. And he's got his deep threat. He's got his receiver who chose to come play with him in this Lincoln Riley system. Is this their time to shine? Is this showtime, or could there be some complications? Darien, what do you think of this?
I look at it as like one of those things, if you're like baking a cake. Coach Swing used to use this analogy all the time. He's like, you got all the ingredients. You got the sugar, the butter, the flour. You got a little whatever flavoring. You got all the ingredients, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can actually put it together and make it taste good. And that's going to be the biggest question you have. Like, you have everything that you want. You got a star quarterback. You got Travis Dye, who transferred in. You got the receivers. You got Rice. You got Addison. You got Williams. You got all the key pieces around him. You've recruited. You got transfers in. And to me, now it's like kind of put it to the test, even though it's Rice and it should be a definite win, but you kind of want to see it be like a well-oiled machine. You kind of want to see it be smooth. You want to see the big plays. You want to see like kind of long drives put together. You don't want to see 3 and outs. You want to see this thing really run, and that's the expectation that Lincoln's expecting. But it's going to be interesting. Like I think I thought they've been working and practicing, so it could be that way. But at the same time, game time is game time, and we'll see how it looks. And I think the thing is, no matter this game to me will probably be the most scrutinized game of week 1 outside like the ranked games, because people really like, there's so much hype and expectation because of all the things that have happened and transpired leading up to their game 1 week. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So USC, again, I keep saying it because we've talked about it all offseason. I've heard very respectable people within this own Field of 12 network come on here and say that USC is a national championship contender. My question to you, Adam, would be in week 1, what is the number one most important thing that you could see from this USC team that would indicate to you that that's a serious statement?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the defense and defensive line without a doubt. I mean,
for sure.
The former staff, Clay Helton, they failed them. They failed this Lincoln Riley staff with the defensive line and even offensive line recruiting. They haven't developed well. They've done well in the perimeter, but once it gets inside the box, they have not done well. Which sometimes you can get away with in the Pac-12, but to do what they want to do this year and to do the things you're just talking about with making a championship run, it's going to be the defense. Injuries have been an issue in camp. There's so many question marks on the defensive line, lack of depth. They have who may be one of the most talented players in the country, a guy named Corey Foreman, who was a 5-star recruit a couple of years ago. And, does he become a household name? That's the big question. He should. He has the talent to do it. But if they want to have that kind of run, Corey Foreman is going to have to play well. They're going to have to develop these guys, and that's going to be the biggest question mark. But I'm all in on the USC hype train. I've been on it for a while now, and I love Lincoln Riley. I love what he's doing. Obviously that offense has a chance to be one of the best in the country. I mean, when you talk about the receivers, they have the playmakers, Mario Williams, Jordan. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I think Lincoln Riley, it's an easy thing to talk about because everyone loves that storyline, but what he could possibly do in the West is there aren't a lot of coaches that get a program with the kind of buy-in that he now has from that administration that are willing to do what it takes. They want to be great so bad. He will always bring in better talent than the Pac-12, and then they go to the Big Ten, he's going to have to recruit the offensive defensive lines and compete with the big dogs. But I love Lincoln Riley. The reality is this storyline is not about Rice and USC. No one really cares about that game. This is about college football is better when USC is really good, and everyone wants to see, is it for real this time? Because we've been hearing that USC is for real for a long time. I mean, we've been wanting it. Exactly. So, but I love what Lincoln Riley's doing. Yeah, it's been a while, man. It's been a long time since this liner was dishing that thing out.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah, you're not wrong. All right. So from a program where we're saying everybody wants to see if they're for real, now I'm going to single a certain player out that you could say that same thing about. That's Spencer Rattler to me.
Yeah.
Okay. He's finding a new home here at South Carolina. They're hosting Georgia State in week 1. And again, not to over scrutinize, but this is a guy who was the odds-on favorite to win every major award in college football just a calendar year ago. And now he's at a new program, right? So you could say the jury's out, or you could say we already kind of have a verdict on Spencer Rattler, and this is now his chance to rewrite that verdict and find a second life in the late stages of his career. Let's go to you first, Darien, on this one. What does Spencer Rattler really need to do in week 1 for you to maybe shift how you view him as a quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Probably the bigger storyline in South Carolina right now is the fact they came to a decision making on their mascot. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but their mascot, they had something wrong with something. The owner made them change the name. It was something crazy story. And a couple of names were Cock Commander. Yeah, Cock Commander. And that was one of the options. And I was like, if South Carolina does that, like, they're doomed forever. But the name they came up with, let me make sure I get it right here, is the General. So you know what? It's from Cock Commander General. I salute it. The General was a good one. So salute to South Carolina for making a great decision for the program. Even though I went to Clemson, I'm not a South Carolina hater per se. I'm really not. Like I'm from the state of South Carolina. I love to see. I feel like you talk about, when they're good, it's good for the state. It's good for recruits. It's good for everybody. And so I'm a fan of what Shane Beamer's doing. And I think that really goes into to Spencer Rattler. I feel like Spencer Rattler went to a coach who he believed in, who he seemed promising, taking over his program. In year 1, they went 7-6, but it was a very competitive 7-6. Like they lost a couple close games, and I feel like they really him as a coach. I think amongst coaches earn respect. In that program, you could definitely see them playing and just moving with a lot more culture and pride. Like, not like they have been in the past, like kind of getting some swagger about themselves. And so I think Spencer Rattler, to me, is going to be the front driver to how this ship's going to go. If he goes, because that's kind of been always the thing, they need some more firepower offensively. They need to be more consistent. They always have good running backs, a decent offensive line to get the ball moving. But to me, what really separates them, or could separate them this year, is having some air raid. Like being able to make some plays down the field, being able to consistently kind of throw intermediate throws, but just having a rhythm. They haven't had, to me, a solid, dependable quarterback to do that. They feel like they have the receivers and the talent. So to me, Spencer Rattler is the missing piece for them to really potentially run the tables in the East. And obviously Georgia, besides Georgia, I think everybody else is beatable. Like, I really think that's like a legit thing. I think everybody else is beatable. Either South Carolina has beat them the past year or two, or they are beatable. And Kentucky's kind of a tweener to me, because Kentucky could be like a real contender. But I think they're going to make it competitive. So I like Spencer Rattler. Like you said, I think this is a perfect opportunity for him. And not only just in college, rewriting the story, but to me, to really put himself back up there in NFL conversations, to be in one of those premier picks, first rounders. He's going to play a bunch of marquee games, a bunch of SEC talent. And he has all the opportunity to me to really put himself back in the conversation.
Darren, I want to put you on the spot quickly, because we are in the transfer portal era where people can change like that. Snap your finger. Yeah. And I want to understand just how much you like Spencer Rattler here. You're a Clemson guy. If you were Clemson's offensive coordinator and you could choose between your guy DJ under center or Spencer Rattler,
oh, good one.
Who are you taking?
I'm taking Big Cinco. They in the same situation. They both underperformed last year, and I'm taking the guy who I know his character. And look, people. I think DJ is probably the biggest question mark at Clemson this year, and he's not. He knows that as much as anybody. But I think the kid is super talented. He played very banged up last year, and we didn't have any choice but to keep throwing him out there because we had no depth at quarterback. But this year, the kid's lost like 20 pounds, slimmed up, looks good, looks confident, and just to see kind of Coach Sweeney rally behind him like he has in the media. One, that's a good mark of a good coach. We've obviously talked about kind of how coaches say things out in the public they shouldn't say. I think one of the good markers of a good coach is saying things in public that your players are going to hear. and you having their back in public. This whole offseason, Coach Swinney has said nothing, but he's been honest and truthful because he's like, he's got to play better, but he's had his back. And so I'm taking Big Cinco. Taking DJ Uyangalele.
Uyangalele. All right. We have just over a minute left here. Adam, let's just wrap up South Carolina with this. Can they actually win the SEC East? Yes or no?
I don't think so. I mean, you look at their schedule. They play at Arkansas. They go to Kentucky. They have to play Georgia, Texas A&M. They go to Florida. They end the season with Clemson. I mean, I think their schedule is too difficult. I do love Spencer Rattler, though. I loved what Shane Beamer's doing, like what Darien said. And I think people forget that the surrounding cast that Spencer Rattler has at South Carolina is impressive. Jaheim Bell is going to be an NFL player. Marshawn Lloyd, Josh Vann, the transfer from Oklahoma, the tight end Austin Stogner. So he's got a good cast, and they're going to be good. They're going to be better. And Spencer Rattler deserves his second chance, this kind of second coming of his career. And I'm excited to see it. But do they win the SEC? I don't think so. But they're going to have an improved season.
Was that your way of just saying there's levels to this shit, Adam?
There's definitely levels. It was a very politically correct answer. It made everyone
very
happy.
PC.
Yeah, understood. All right, we appreciate everybody for watching After Dark. Again, if you did check us out on YouTube, please click subscribe. We see everybody who likes and comments, and we really do appreciate it. We will be back here all season long, including tomorrow night, where we've got Felder, we've got Clint coming back on, and we've got Kevin Sumlin for the second time back here on the Field of 68 After Dark. For Adam Breneman, for Darien Rencher, my name is Greg Waddell, and we'll see you tomorrow.